Have you guys heard of the Extreme Experience?
The Extreme Experience.
Well, yeah, I'm married, so I live it.
I'm not laughing, honey. I'm not laughing. It's out at Putnam Racetrack.
Okay.
Oh, Putnam Park. Yeah.
Yes.
Familiar
Putnam
with
Park. Thank you.
Familiar with
Yeah.
the track, but
Once a year, they bring in a bunch of Italian. So you've got Ferraris, you name it. They've got foreign cars. There's also Corvettes and other stuff like that, but Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, the new Corvette, Audi R8, you name it. But last year was the first year I've ever done it, and I did it for my dad. My dad was retiring, and so he's obviously a huge car guy. He and I went out there, and we got to drive a Ferrari and a Lamborghini back to back.
nice.
It's only 4 laps, and it's like 4 laps, that sounds great. When you're going 140, 150 miles an hour, it goes very quick.
Mhm.
So it's nice to do 2, but that's coming up here in like 2 or 3 weeks. Really looking forward to doing that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you'd enjoy it.
I probably would.
And
I
it's-
assume Helmerich's probably going to be out there.
it might be his cars, actually. I should probably double check on
So do you
that.
have an instructor in the driver's seat?
Yeah, no, in the passenger seat.
Or, sorry,
Yeah,
passenger seat? Yeah.
So you get to drive. They're there. You're not allowed to look at your mirrors. They want you to just look out the windshield.
Okay.
And so you are
Not a
passing
bad idea.
people.
Yeah,
you-
necessarily.
you're not signaling to go around the other guy that's going 90. But it's so fun. It's stuff that you don't get to do out here. And I'm a huge car guy.
We did something similar. It's probably been
A long time.
over a decade ago up in Kokomo at like an old abandoned airstrip. Similar thing. I don't think it's not as big as that track. So that track would be great because it's an official track. It's probably
awesome.
longer. We got 2 different drives, but I mean, it was like over like that. It was fun just even for the minute that you were in it, but it was.
It's expensive, but it's not your car. You don't feel bad about what you do to it for 4
Yeah.
laps.
Not your car, not your brakes, not your tires.
Yeah.
All the things. Yeah.
I would suspect after a season worth of people just beating on those, they'd probably flip them, sell them, and then
Sell it
move
as
on.
grandma driven.
Well, or not.
Yeah. Low mileage.
Yeah. Garage kept.
Mostly Sundays.
Buy this
Never been on
5-year-old
track.
Lambo, has no clutch left, but
Yeah, if
on
you haven't
discount.
been out there, it's coming up April 2nd or something.
April 2nd, okay.
Yeah, look into it. I'll send you a link.
Cool. Yeah, my neighbor's a driving instructor out there.
Oh, really?
He's, on his, not his day job, but every time, I feel like every time I come home from the office, he has a new car being delivered to his house. I'm like,
what is that?
a couple doors down.
Oh, okay.
We should
Yeah.
become friends with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet he likes bourbon.
He's from Kentucky. He's from the Louisville area. So
Perfect. Let me know when
Yeah.
you stop by. I just like being around him, honestly. Like, you take in, American cars have had their phase, I think, in my opinion, of, like the 60s were just beautiful, 70s and 80s weren't. And then, there's some really nice cars that have come out of it. Some of the new high performance cars, the new GT500 is incredible. But foreign cars always have been appealing to me. So yeah, I just like being around them, looking
well,
at
you
them.
mentioned the vet, and then you just went through your sort of decades there of American muscle. Are you for or against the rear engine vet of the last few years?
So my dad will probably see this and hate me for it. He's a huge Corvette guy. I've never been a Corvette guy. I like the Stingray, like the late 60s.
Yeah.
The side pipes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
those are
cool.
gorgeous. But as far as Corvettes go, I know that's a cult, right? But the rear engine, I could probably get involved with that.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I like really early era vets, and then there's a huge gap where I'm like, yeah, they're fine. Never was a big vet guy. And then has it been 5 years now when they call it the new version of the Stingray was the pace car at the Indianapolis 500, and it was
about
the
that.
debut of the rear engine.
You guys would know.
And I was like, that's actually pretty sweet. Now, every now and then when I see them on the road from far away, I immediately think, oh, is that a
McLaren.
is that a McLaren?
Yep.
Is that a Ferrari? Like, and I go, oh no, it's a vet. But
Yeah.
it's different, but I like it.
What's telling is when you get some guys who are foreign owners or experienced drivers, and they drive one of those, and they finally say, "Oh, this isn't bad."
When you can
especially when
get
look at the price point too.
Yeah, 60, 70,000, I think, for the, I don't know, Stingray.
Even
or
if you suit up
LT1.
near $100,000, like some of the things that you get with that, if you want to go to that next level, it's more than twice that probably.
Well, and service too, right? I mean, if you afford the car, it doesn't matter, but
Right.
it's a normal oil change instead of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big fan.
Real quick, so Helmerich has that 2011 Lambo. Been privileged to drive it a couple of times. In its, 13, 14 years old, whatever. Absolutely loved it. Would be completely happy with that car. It wasn't long after that he had to go have some service done. Nothing crazy, but a couple basic things. Clay did have that clutch done. And I was like, hey, just out of curiosity, like, what did that run? It was like an oil change and some tires and the radio and maybe a clutch or something else. And it was like $35,000. I was like, holy shit.
And that's why
I remember you could buy a car for that.
Yeah, I can't really now.
Not now.
Yeah, not anything nice.
So that's why Italian cars are gorgeous in design and overcomplicated as hell on all the construction and engineering of them.
Well, I think we're helping Chevy sell Corvettes right now.
Potentially. Yeah.
Or go German.
Hashtag
You're welcome.
Chevrolet, yeah.
American.
Oh, write that
or
down.
German.
Yeah, write it down.
Stick with that.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Industrious Podcast. Thank you all for joining us from wherever you get your podcasts, or if you're tuning in to the Assessa YouTube channel, thank you for doing so. By the way, if you're on that channel and you haven't subscribed, shame on you. Please click it. It won't cost you a dime. It won't cost you a $35,000 new clutch. Also hit that little notification bell icon so you can be notified when new episodes like this one drop. We would greatly appreciate it. All right, today, special guest, Justin Davis. Mr. Davis, JD as we like to say. Welcome to the Industrious Podcast.
Good to see you, fellas. Thanks for having me.
You're
welcome. 4 or 5 months since we did the Heroes Foundation podcast?
True. Correct, yeah.
Really enjoyed that.
You're
Looking forward to today.
You're an old pro at this.
We'll see.
Well, we're changing gears here a little bit, going from the philanthropic side to the for-profit side, if you will, and the entrepreneurial side. Why don't you give our listeners and viewers of this podcast a little background intro on yourself?
Yeah. My name's Justin Davis. I'm 35, originally from Greenfield. Born and raised, always thought, to the point of our conversation earlier, always thought I'd get out of town. And I think my cable now is 9 Star, which is from Greenfield. I live 15 minutes from where I grew up. Went to school downtown, IUPUI. Really enjoyed it. I know you guys are huge IU fans. I see the IU shirt on right now. Really, really enjoyed IU, loved IU, wanted to go to IU. That was probably my first self-check, I think, that I can remember, of I wanted to go to Bloomington, and I looked at the cost, and I knew it was a big number. And I was grateful at the time. I was selling cars, and I was selling cars to, you name it, farmers to kindergarten teachers. And unfortunately, I could see their financials, right? So you sign up for a loan, and you get to see they're making, at the time, like $30,000 a year, and they've got $200,000 in debt. And so that was probably good for me to see as a 17-year-old kid. So I made the decision to go to IUPUI. So I went there, really, really enjoyed it. 4 years, made some really good relationships, good friendships. And then I spent every Friday and Saturday evening in Bloomington. So I'd sell cars Friday night until we closed, run home, let the dogs out. Completely different.
You let the dogs out.
Yeah. Me.
Wow, that was an old dad joke right
You're
there.
welcome.
First one, let's get a tally going. Drove to Bloomington, would get up Saturday morning early, come back home, shave, let the dogs out, and then go to work Saturday and go back to Bloomington Saturday night. And it was still a great college career. It was definitely not living on campus, being in a fraternity, that kind of relationship. Still like to go to the games. I think, I'm a huge sports guy, but in college, who doesn't like to go to a good tailgate? Really, really enjoyed my career. And then got out of college. I sold cars until I graduated, sold cars until May. And then in May, over a 3-month period, I interviewed and joined Stryker Orthopedics. So I sold orthopedics for Stryker for 5 years. It was a really, really great opportunity. You cut your teeth in a job like that. And, thankfully, I had done that for 6-7 years selling cars. And so I knew the gist of sales. I learned the hard work it takes, the relationships, the grind, if you will. And then I took a lot of that with me to Stryker, and I realized, the sales process is completely different. You show up on a lot, and I'm going to sell you a car in 90 minutes. You try to put that into a surgeon relationship, and you'd have to go, you won't go very far. Mm-hmm. So completely, tailored my sales approach through my time at Stryker, and then continued that. I left Stryker and worked at DJO, which is now called Novus. A couple of us started a distributorship in the Indianapolis area. We grew it from nothing to, it's one of the larger distributorships in Indy now. As far as I know, I've been out for 2 years, but they're really doing a great job. The distributors, Eric and Zach, are guys that invest in their team. And I learned a lot from those guys through my time there of how you take care of a team. You still got a business to run. You still have to make sure at the end of the day you're turning a profit. But if you're not investing in your team, investing in the quality of your team's life, the infrastructure, then you're just cashing checks, and that doesn't last very long. So I took a lot of lessons from those guys. Got into real estate in 2022. And then in 2023, my wife and I purchased LeafSpring School at Geist, and I exited the orthopedic career. It was really good timing. My daughters were almost 2 and 4.5. And it was tearing me apart. I was gone every day. Surgeries start at 7 usually, depending on where you are, sometimes 6:30, sometimes 7:30. But I was gone every day early. I left before they woke up. My wife took them to school. That was Monday through Friday. Usually had like 3 or 4 work dinners a week. So then you're going out and you're doing dinners, you're grabbing a beer with someone, and then you have a call on the weekends. So you work on the weekends, you're in surgeries when they pop up, you're running trays around for add-ons, like an add-on surgery for maybe what would come on Monday. And the quality of life, it hit me hard. And I knew I had to make a change. So, start with the real estate, and then this school opportunity came up, and it's the best thing, hands down, besides my wife, that has ever happened to me. And it's been incredible. I've learned a ton in the last 2 years. Our school's been recognized as a both locally and nationally accredited for being a top level school, and then also recognized through the LeafSpring franchise for both parent satisfaction and teacher satisfaction, which goes back to leadership. And it starts with an owner, but it quickly goes down to your administrative team, your leadership team within the school, and again goes back to what I learned with the Eric and Zach and many people before them of how to take care of your team. And if you're not taking care of your team, it reflects very quickly down the line. And where does that come back to? It pops back up, and it goes to the owner through feedback and upset customers. So we'll talk more on that in a little bit, I'm sure, but that's where we're at today. And we'll talk a little bit more about some new opportunities that are coming up here in the next 2 weeks.
Perfect. You mentioned something that made me want to segue into the investment of team and talking about how it comes back to the people. I was watching a short video on Titleist and the development of the Pro V1 golf ball. And ultimately, at some point in the video, probably the latter third of it, the current CEO of Acushnet said, at the end of the day, yes, it was all about this research, this, that, and the other, but what has really made this company successful, because I guess the company's been around since the 20s or early 30s and now has, second or third generation family members working at the company now. And he said, that's why we're successful. It's the people. Yes, we have the technology. We put a bunch into having high quality items, products that we sell, but ultimately, if we don't have the right people, and the testament is having a third generation person here, clearly we're doing something right. Otherwise, they wouldn't want to work here. That's why we're successful.
Creating a passion.
So, yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head.
Well, kudos to Titleist, because for a long time they got me to buy the Pro V1s through their wonderful commercials.
Yeah.
And then I realized I suck. So I buy the cheap balls now, and I still shoot the same score. But one of these days, maybe with some time, be able to get a little better.
Yeah. Well, like anything else, just takes practice.
Yeah,
it's not the balls that make the difference; it's the clubs. That's your issue. It's the clubs.
All right, so get custom fit clubs.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll get right on that. I'm sure it'll make a big difference through my 101 scores.
You're gonna find probably 20 to 30 yards more in distance, and everything will be straight.
All right, you sold me.
Yeah.
You are.
Just saying.
You, sir, are a good salesman.
Yeah.
You might want to write that down. Speaking of sales,
Just visualize it. Just visualize that shot now.
looking back on your days as a car salesman, I often hear some 60-plus-year-old gentleman talking to a 20-something say, "Hey, go get sales experience first." Whether it's car sales, copier sales, something that is really hard and tough to either build, relationship skills, sales skills, grit.
Callous.
Yeah. Looking back on that, now you're not crazy removed from it, but far enough where looking back now, would you say, whether you liked it or didn't like it, would you say, I'm really glad I did that?
100%. It's an easy one for me. I've shared this with so many people, and I thank my dad for it. So dad gave me an opportunity. I was 15, and I started cleaning cars, which is really hard for a 15-year-old because you can't drive them. So, someone has to pull in.
Oh, yeah.
But I think what happened is he needed someone to clean cars, and he was like, you're ready. And so he tossed me in. But then from there, managed a lot and detail and all that stuff. But then I started selling when I was 17. So not only was I trying to build that muscle, right, that sales muscle, but I was also trying to do it being some young punk kid that, didn't have enough money my clothes were okay. I didn't have the life skills or the life lessons to create really great rapport with people. And I think rapport is huge.
Yeah.
But you find creative ways to do it, and you learn to think on your feet, and you learn what it takes to, I still remember the board in the break room, meet and greet, establish common ground, select a vehicle, present a vehicle. Like, it's the stuff, it was basics, right? There was 1 through 7 on the board, and that's with anything in sales or life. You meet someone, establish common ground. Nobody wants to talk to you if you let's find something good to talk about, whether it's cars or sports, which I'm not very good at all, knowledge or playing sports. But in general, find something that you can relate with and find that in the person you're talking to. So absolutely, and rejection. So I got really good at rejection because it was a repeat of a script 30 times, 20 times a day. Pull on a lot, and I'm good, and then they pull out. Pull on a lot, same thing. And then when you really got someone that wanted to talk to you for a few minutes, maybe it wasn't a sale, but you could practice those things. And I learned very quickly, you learn the word tracks, and you learn ways to grab their attention with something. Mm-hmm. Whether it's what they're driving now, what they're looking at, find that common ground and go with it. And with that, then you can help eliminate the negative, eliminate the no's, and turn them into maybes. And then you can turn a maybe into a yes. And very quickly, I went from the bottom of the board, because there's a leaderboard, of course, because everything's a competition in life, and especially in sales. Not everything's a competition in life, you know what I'm trying to say, in sales especially. But I quickly found myself going up the board and then making really good money as a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid selling cars. So much so when I graduated college, I took a big pay cut to go into orthopedic sales. And it was another self-check of, do I stay in this business that I know a lot about, and I see the trajectory of going from a salesperson to a manager to maybe an owner one day, or do you take the sacrifice now to go into the next chapter? And I think that was probably when I learned short-term sacrifice, long-term gain.
Yeah.
At least a taste of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I've done it a couple times to take the short-term loss to take the big win. And I think it's just something that you have to learn. You can listen to someone tell you or read books about it, but you have to learn it yourself.
Yeah. The ortho side, totally different type of selling, right?
Completely.
More relationship management. What were the biggest things for you to learn when you made that transition?
Patience was huge.
Yeah.
I think you've known me long enough now, Vince, that I'm not a patient person. I don't sit around much. I'm full gas all the time. Patience was huge. And then, product knowledge is important. You guys know that from your business, knowing the ins and outs of your stuff. But more importantly, I know mine. I'm an expert in my field. But I need to be an expert on all my competitors too. Mm-hmm. And that took me many years, not just to practice and learn, but to realize that. Again, people can tell you what to do and how to be successful, and everyone will tell you it will come in time. But finding it in you to, instead of, all right, I worked 60 hours this week. I really want to go to Ale and have some wings and a beer. I should probably sit at home and study up on my competition. And then you start doing that. And, at this point, I'm with my wife and we're dating, and, times have changed, or things had changed, but you had to keep practicing your craft. And so that's something else that I learned for sure was practice your craft, keep getting better at it. And the more you invest in yourself, whether it's in, one-on-one meetings with a senior leadership or a senior rep, or just a podcast or a book, it's something. Take the extra step, take the initiative to get to the next level. And that's what it takes.
Right.
I would imagine that both in automotive sales, right, because you're dealing directly with the consumer, and then transitioning into, call it professional sales of orthopedics, dealing with not necessarily a consumer, but a different relationship.
A user.
And definitely a user, yeah. And then probably in somewhat of ways, some different personalities as well. I go back to, I was talking to someone the other day, and our family rule is our kids, once they get their license, have to get a quote unquote real job. Like babysitting, yard work, those are great. You can do those prior to that and earn money, but you need to go get a real job where you have a boss and coworkers, and we strongly encourage them to work in the service industry. So, my daughter works in a hair salon, my son works in a restaurant, because the one thing you have to really learn are people skills, dealing with all kinds of different personalities, attitudes, happy people, mad people, all the things. You talked about what you learned as a 15, 16, 17-year-old transitioning up, going, selling while going to school, and then making that jump into orthopedic sales. Can you touch on the people skills, the soft skills that, like, if someone's listening to us that's in that early 20s and wanting to get in the sales game, it's one thing to develop a pitch, to develop the what questions to ask, and how to establish relationship, but the soft skills, like what does that mean?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. To the point of what you said about service, my wife says the same thing. She served in college, and you learn it different ways, right? So she learned it from being a server, and people are maxed their foods wrong, and then they throw it back at you, and they're pissed, and they want a refund. I learned it from rejection and over, and the callous you create there. But the people skills, I think the best way to look at it is, if you are someone that goes out and you think about yourself every day, and you think about, how can I do this? How can I make this? How can I create this? You're saying a lot of I's. If you can figure out from a team aspect, or from a global, right? Stand back and look at it globally, or holistic. If you figure out how to help your team, and it's whether you're raising somebody else up with you. So if you have, junior partners, when you're coaching them up, you're coaching yourself up at the same time. So you're getting better. It's the give a man a fish, right? Mm-hmm. You give a man a fish. If somebody gives me a fish, then now I'm just eating. If someone teaches me something, I'm absorbing it, and I want to figure out how I can teach somebody else. And I became a big fan of not just giving back from an education standpoint, but for the other reps on the team, the junior reps. I had different nicknames or whatever, but it was ways that you can take these young guys and get them from a 101 to a 201. So the faster you get people on your team to a 201 level or a 301 level, they can step in and do the basic stuff that you're doing all the time. Mm-hmm. So if you get them to do, the tray running or sitting up for a case, now I can focus my time on the next level, cultivating the relationship or cultivating new relationships. So you asked about the soft skills. I think the soft skills are, being able to not just create a relationship with someone and get them to be your friend, because, that's one way to do it. But I always did it as, how can I help you? How can I help this person? How can I solve a problem? If you're just trying to sell them something, it's the old show up and throw up. And I was super guilty of that early on. But I think what I realized, and when I started spending more time with people that were much better than me, I realized they don't just show up and throw up. They are solving a problem, creating value, or maybe even solving a problem that the surgeon or the customer didn't even know that they had. And it's through getting to actually know them. Don't just, I had a different approach. Again, I'm not a sports guy. So I couldn't just go and watch sports and drink a beer. I had to find a more personal way to connect with them. And for me, it was adding value for being the guy. And I was the guy for, needed a car. That was the first one. They're looking for cars. Perfect. So they would connect me with this customer, and I would take them or walk them through, what car you're looking at. Let me make a connection. Let me help you buy this, save you money. So now you're saving them money. You're creating value for them that they probably didn't even know was there.
Mm-hmm.
From that, it was, I had a ticket connection. So it's like concert tickets, Colts tickets, whatever. I'm your guy. And it turned into, now it's like I have so many people call me every day for something that I've connected over a 12-year career in orthopedic sales, because I didn't do this when I was younger because I didn't have any connections. I didn't have the knowledge to be a resource. Literally last night, 9:30 at night, someone called me asking for concert tickets for a show that was sold out, and I have a connection with the guy who, we got on like third row. And so I haven't talked to this individual in forever, but they remembered, hey, Justin can help with that. And I think that's part of the soft skills. Mm-hmm. I'm not encouraging anyone to call me for concert tickets, but it's little things like that to where if I've been out of the industry for over 2 years now, and I still talk to most of my customers, they're friends of mine, because we had an actual relationship established and not just I'm selling you something.
Yeah.
We're friends. I created value, and they brought value to me by me creating value. So I'm helping you solve a problem. You're helping me with my career. My number goes up, my family lives a better life, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to look at it not selfishly, I guess, is the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's a win-win essentially.
It's a win-win, 100%.
And that's how we kind of always talk about this a little bit, where if you look at just in general terms, negotiation, there's a lot of people have this misnomer that like a successful negotiation is I get everything I want. And the reality is if I get everything I want and you don't get everything you want, or you feel like ultimately you lost, then somewhere it's going to go awry. Where the real successful negotiation is we both walk away feeling like we won something.
My dad
in a positive way.
100%. My dad told me when I was younger, a good deal is a state of mind. And I sold so many cars to where the customer was extremely happy. And I made a boatload of money. But as long as they're happy and we got to the number that we needed to get to, then both people were happy. And that's the repeat customer. I sold a ton of cars and we lost money. And they were happy. And I was happy because it helped me with something else. But yeah, it's a win-win is a great way to look at it. It's an easy way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Relationships matter for sure. All right. So the interesting transition that I think, at least to me, is interesting because it certainly isn't something that happens every day. How and when did you decide to go from orthopedic sales to today being a school owner, which is certainly not something you hear very often?
Yeah, I know we talked about this briefly on the other podcast, and I tried to keep it more about just business, but there was more to it. And the more I thought about it, and I kind of expected this question because I get it so often. And, jokingly, there's no easy transition. You're not going from orthopedic sales to owning a preschool.
Yep.
But I think if I'd back up a little bit, my wife and I, Molly Ann, she's amazing. We've been together since 2012. We met at the beginning of my orthopedic career. And thankfully, we grew together in our careers. And because of that, there's no way we would ever be together still if I would have met her, in my opinion, before the orthopedic career, because it was awful. But she saw it. The hours are awful. The career, you're working holidays. I mean, I worked Christmas every year for like 7 years. There's so many things that aren't fun. But because of that, we grew together in our careers, and I had a support system with her. She was my 50-50, right? Yep. What I lacked, she had, and vice versa. And we make all of our decisions, except for cars and watches. We make all of our decisions based on making sure it's a 50-50. What does this help both of us? Does this fix a problem? I'll save that for later. But if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't have my two girls, Dylan and Avery. They're amazing. And my youngest, Avery, she joined us in 2021. I had to think about that one. 2021. So 21, we're coming out of COVID. This is May of 21, and she came 60 days early. So she came at 30 weeks, and I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason. So, I'm in the same hospital as my wife, and I service 30, 40 hospitals. That day,
Okay.
she was coming for her 30 week. I just happened to be the same hospital as her.
Oh.
She called me crying. She had a 30 week. She was preeclampsia, blood pressure's through the roof. And I bolted out of the room, called the office, get somebody to this OR. I've got to go. And we had Avery literally an hour and a half later. And we spent 61 days in the NICU. She was born 1 pound, 15 ounces. And as much as I wanted to be in that room mentally with them through the entire 60 days, and physically for that matter, I couldn't, because it was a job. And it was a job that required me not to work remote, not to have someone step in for me. We were in the hospital. My wife was in the hospital for 7 days. And during that time, the first 3 days were awful. I was in and out. But then duty calls. And so I would work all day long. My wife would be in the hospital during the day. She'd go home at night. I'd come home. We'd have dinner with the oldest, who was at home, she got the shaft during this 2 month period. And thankfully we have a wonderful family that supported us. And I'm giving you a long answer, but I promise I'm getting to it. We had a wonderful family that supported us. And I would go to the hospital at night, and I would be with my daughter. And I knew she was in the incubator, and they only let you open it to change a diaper. And so the only time I could ever touch my daughter for the first however many weeks was to change diaper. And I knew it was like 6 p.m., which I could never get to, and then it was like 10 p.m. So every night, 10 o'clock, I'd pull up to the curb, the security guard at the front, I think it's Fred, he'd be like, hey, what's up? And I'd walk right in, I'd go up, and I'd change her diaper, and I'd spend an hour with her. And then, get home like 11:30, and then, out the door the next day. And so that hit me really, really hard, that I wanted to be there to support my wife, and I wanted to do these things. And I had a wonderful team in orthopedics, but it's just the job requires that you're involved, and you're there, and you're taking care of your people. And that was probably the first time it really hit me hard to want to find something else. And that's when we started looking for different opportunities. We bought an apartment complex shortly before that, which was going to be literally within 3 months, which is going to be an opportunity for us to try to build side income to get me to step away. And through different market things, and California, Texas, New York money started coming to Indiana, it made it very difficult to continue that. But I have a really good friend of mine, Brian Bowman, who he's a Heroes guy, wonderful friend, and one of my closest mentors now. We started riding our bikes together during COVID. And because you couldn't ride in groups anymore, because sweat causes COVID when you breathe it in, and whatever. But we rode side by side for hours, and we would talk, and I would just pick his brain and ask questions, and we'd go back and forth. And they are wonderful owners of 4 preschools on the north side of Indy. And what I learned from him is there's a really good opportunity there from a business standpoint, but more importantly, from a parent standpoint. I can be there for my kids, that was the coolest thing. So we started looking very quickly. And he and I almost bought one together, actually. And the numbers didn't work out, didn't make sense. And literally the day that deal fell through was the day that the owner of our school finally said he's ready to sell. And so, again, everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer. And we closed January of 2023.
Nice.
And I gave my previous company, I gave them a nice transition of several months to make sure all my customers, again, it's about passion and more than just a job. Giving them the notice to make sure I could transition. And then, now we have LeafSpring School, Geist, and we've been there 2 years, and it's been amazing. I get to see my kids. We have breakfast every morning. We do our daily affirmations on the way to school. We talk about, I'm smart, I'm a leader, I'm a good friend, I'm a good listener, all these things. We have a routine in the mornings that I'm involved with instead of just my wife trying to get them out the door. It's been life-changing.
Yep, I can tell.
It's been really cool.
And how's Avery doing today?
Geez. Well, today she's got a broken foot and she's in a boot, but she was on the dresser.
Like she was beating up Big Sister.
Yeah, she was following Big Sister, jumping off a dresser. But she is, somebody told me the other day, you can always tell like a NICU baby because they're fighters. Now she's the smallest in her class. Her friends are all 6 to 12 inches taller than her, and they're all within the same month of birthdays. But she's a fighter. She has that in her. And you can see it. She's very independent. She's very headstrong. She's doing awesome. She's doing really awesome. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, that's good. So again, and we talked about this a little bit before, but you don't come across too many people when you say, hey, so what do you do? And they say, well, I own a school. You just confirmed that. Super happy. Been doing that for about 2 or 3 years now. I guess from a business standpoint, people would say, well, why are Vince and Joe talking to a school owner? What could they possibly have in common?
Very little.
Well, yes,
But-
with the exception.
but I think you're a business owner that happens to be in, I don't know what kind of education you'd call it necessarily. I'm sure there's a phrase, but, and so there's a different hat you wear in some sense, but you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur.
Yes. I don't know if there's a question there.
Yeah,
but
so the-
I was helping him. I was helping him ask his question.
The question is,
he needs help.
Yeah, I know a lot of it.
I do, and they would agree with you. The challenges that you have seen and that they can consistently see today, they're all relatable. We all have a lot of the same challenges regardless of what industry we're in.
Yep.
So what would you say are some of the biggest challenges? You went to a new industry, you own a school. What challenges are you seeing on a regular basis, and that you feel like, all right, I'm well suited for this, even though it's a totally different environment?
Yeah, and I think I had this conversation with a friend of mine recently through this business owners group that I started, and I'd love to share about that. But the conversation with this is leadership, and it's not just leadership from above. And we touched on this earlier. It's not just a boss. It is creating self-starters. So I've got a wonderful admin team that is my support. They are I've got a director, assistant director, a curriculum specialist, an administrative assistant, and I've got a nurse. So that's a lot of people just to be under me, which I don't call it that. They're my team, but over our staff. And if you just hire someone because they had that experience before and they had good recommendation or good references, then they'll probably do a good job. But what we've created is, if someone comes to me with a question, instead of me just giving an answer or what I want them to do, I always ask them, like, how would you handle the situation? Like, what do you want to do? And it makes them step back for a second and think about how to answer that question, how to create a solution to the problem. And it helps create them into self-starters. And so what happened pretty quickly is they usually come to me now with solutions. Like, hey, here's this problem. This is what we want to do. What do you think? And typically it's like, that sounds fantastic. Great solution. Maybe I might add something, maybe not. But if you're leading your team and you're riding their ass all the time, that's fine. You'll be there. You're telling them what to do, and they're following your orders. I'm not always right, and I'd be dumb to think I'm always right. And also, if I'm not there to ride them, then what's going to happen when you're not there cracking the whip or being a manager or a boss that walks around and watches everybody? Instead, create a team that can take care of themselves.
Right.
And so, kind of what we talked about earlier with the junior reps, building them up so you can go to the next step. I have done that, not just me, but my team's done an amazing job, but we have created that culture to where they can handle issues themselves, and they really do an amazing job. I put them up against anyone. My team's amazing. We are now looking at a second location, and I wouldn't feel comfortable to do that if I didn't feel like they were doing an amazing job, whether I'm there or not, right? But because they are, we can look at the next one. And I wouldn't do that, again, with the debt that you take on with the second location if I wasn't 100% sure that we would succeed. So that we're there because of leadership. I made a note here because I love this quote, but how you do anything is how you do everything. So whether it's my wife, so we washed our sheets the other night. It was like a Sunday night, and it's like 6 o'clock at night. We're putting the sheets on. We just finished dinner because you eat early with young kids. And we made the bed, and I folded the comforter and the sheet down like a hotel, like a turn down service.
Oh yeah, just put some mints on the pillow.
Yeah, there's 2 mints. But she looked at me and she goes, "Do I need to say it?" I'm like, "Say what?" She goes, I'm like, "How you do anything is how you do everything." And then we made the bed the right way. We put them down, put the pillows on it, and then 2 hours later we took them down and got back on it. But it's how you do anything, literally in any approach or any aspect. And I catch myself doing it all the time. I'll drop something. I'm like, "I'll get it later." No, you won't. Just pick it up. And I don't know. I'm a big fan of that quote because it sticks with you. It sticks with me at least.
Yeah, reminds me of Admiral McCraven's commencement speech at Texas about making your bed.
That guy is a legend.
Yeah,
I listen to that probably once a month.
I think it'd be fair if you looked up Wikipedia, like what's the words, the term stud, and just have his picture there. If you anything about him, you're like, yep, that's fair.
Him and then the most interesting man in the world, side by side.
They might be one of the same. Just one has a beard, one doesn't. He's shaved. So you just talked about you're looking at a second location now. For any business that wants to expand, I assume that the thought process is similar. Like, what does the market justify that? Why do I want a second location at this point? So what are some of those things that have sparked that?
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in customer service and making sure, as part of the team, making sure your customers, which are my parents and my family, the parents of the school and the kids,
Yep.
to make sure that they have the best experience possible. And not every day can be perfect, right? There's always something that you could improve on, but getting feedback and creating a culture where teachers are comfortable telling you when there's something that needs fixed. And the parents, they all have my cell phone. They can reach out anytime they want, text, phone call, email, anything, to share something. And what it is, it creates a culture of fixing a problem quickly, right? So making sure the customer's number one, which I'm a firm believer that the customer is number one, but fix the problem quickly to where it's just a little blip and it's not a compounding problem. So again, it builds to, I can't look at number two until I feel like I have number one squared away. And I verified with you that this would air after number two opens. But I took a different approach looking to expand. Land is super expensive. And in order to build a new school now, land is insane. You have to buy in a really good location. You've got to buy really good dirt. You've got to build a nice facility. Rates are in the 7s, 6 to 7s, depending on what you do. You really got to make sure you're doing it right, in my opinion. And what I didn't want to do is add this big pile of debt without having a level of certainty. So I looked into tertiary markets instead. I'm from Greenfield, small, really, was small, now it's a lot bigger. But in Greenfield, I remember the facility that I went to, it was called House of Kids. I remember vividly, it wasn't the greatest experience. And it wasn't where, if I can remember it that way, then it wasn't like a fun experience. It was something that could have been better. And so I looked into all these tertiary markets, and it's a lot of different facilities that do a really good job, but they don't have what we have from a large facility standpoint, where we're in a really good market, we charge really good rates, and we can afford to offer the best things for the kids, whether it's super healthy meals, which we've just retailored our menus to try to get rid of as much ultra-processed stuff as we can to make for a healthier snack options. I have 2 chefs instead of 1. So with 2 chefs, obviously double the payroll, but it goes to the story of it's not just about profit. Profit's important, but I want to make sure we're doing the best we can at all times. Let's be the gold standard. But our chefs did an amazing job with the meals and the curriculum we have. How can we put that into a smaller market? In order to do that, you have to have a lower barrier of entry, in my opinion. So we are actually looking, it's weird to say it out loud because I've been using code words for it for the last 3 months because we're under contract.
Omaha.
Yeah. Peyton Manning, I know that one. That's the sports guy. We're going to Pendleton. So Pendleton is a growing market in that area. It's in the path of development on 69. And so I looked at Pendleton, Fortville, Greenfield, and I knew after driving 50,000 miles a year for over a decade for my last job, I really would like to drive a little less and still, go to a market that we like. And Avon would be great, but I've done that 465 drive, and it's rough from the Fishers area. So we're going to Pendleton. There's a bunch of growth going on in the area. So I looked at a bunch of several different lots to buy and build. And then I was like, let's start looking for maybe an existing school that wants to sell. And I actually got connected through my business owners meeting with the owner there that was selling. It was on a whisper. And so it wasn't posted anywhere. You couldn't find it. But because of that, I got to meet her, and I was able to secure her school and an acre and a half next door. So we're going to buy the existing, which is a nice facility. It's been there a very long time. It needs a lot of work. But we're going to do a 6,000 square foot expansion, build it out to the north part of the lot. We're going to shift everyone over. So we're always open for the customers. We're not closing. We'll shift them to the new side. We're putting in a brand new kitchen, new playground equipment. It's going to be amazing. And then we'll renovate. Probably 6 weeks. We're going to do a very fast scrape and rebuild in the existing facility, and then we'll spread everybody out. And so we're not impacting the parents that are there now. We're not starting from fresh. So again, if you can find something, if I was looking to get into an industry now, I would want to buy something rather than start fresh, personally. Like, buy into something. There's plenty of older people that are trying to find succession. They don't have a succession plan. They're trying to find someone to take over. It's working really well in this scenario so far, right? But we're going to do that. We're going to reinvest in the town, and we will have about 200 spots for kids. And it will be something that the town's never had before. We're bringing an indie-style, high-quality facility to a tertiary market. And I hope, based on everything that I've looked at, it's going to go really, really well. We can charge less because our barrier to entry is less, and we can target more families. And if this goes well, I'm already in talks with 2 other areas for hopefully school number 3 and school number 4. We're going to start here first, though. I think you can tell I'm excited. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think you may have just answered. Like, what's the vision? It's obviously multiple schools. Whatever that number ends up being is whatever it ends up being.
I don't want to overreach,
Yeah.
because then it goes back to quality, right? Because then when you're in sales, if you have a $20 million territory, if you go to 30, your quality of service drops for that original 20, right? And now you're trying to take care of the new people. If I get to a point where I feel like any more won't bring value to the families,
Yeah.
or I can't do it the best way possible, we'll stop. And I also don't want to go so much where I'm getting out of what I did this for, which is more time for family. So 2, I can do for sure. I'm promoting within. I've got my director, Lauren, who is now going to be my executive director, which will help me be over both schools. She'll be my right-hand woman. And then 3, I truly think we can do that too. If I feel 4, I won't go to 3 and 4 quickly. If I feel 3 is enough and we can do a really good job with 3, that'll be enough for me. I'm someone that's driven. I like to grow.
Right.
I like to continue to evolve, and maybe we'll have 3 and then I'll venture off into something else. But I'm really enjoying this. I don't plan on selling these ever. I plan on being involved in these communities for a very, very long time. I want my girls to grow up in these schools. I want my girls to work in these schools, right? Get a job and see what it is. This is a family business now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the vision.
We'll
You briefly mentioned you wanted to chat about the business owners group. So if you would quickly touch on that.
Yeah, so last January, a buddy of mine started a business owner and entrepreneurs group. And what it was there was like 5 of us that met in my basement. And we all poured a bourbon and we talked about the businesses that we own or the investments that we're doing. And I saw something with that. I saw where we could create. I've been to BNI meetings. I'm not a fan of those personally. I'm actually going one Friday, I think. But I go for the guest speakers. I really enjoy the guest speakers and learning from the people that are teaching lessons that they've learned. But what I've created now is, and I kind of took it and ran with it. We meet quarterly. I've got over 100 members. We just capped the attendance per meeting to 50. So the last 2 meetings we've been between 48 and 50. And we won't be able to do more than that and still have the same effectiveness. Goes back to what we've been talking about, right? If you can't do it the best way possible, why do it? Always 2 guest speakers. Excuse me. Always 2 guest speakers. I have a sponsor that brings in a meal. So you come in, doors open at 6, the meeting starts at 6:30. You're networking for half an hour, and then at 6:30 sharp we start, and we go through the different topics. So the guest speakers, the last meeting we had 2 awesome guys. A local business owner that runs a food reprocessing company. They do like $50 million in revenue a year. Really, really powerful guest speaker. And then on the other spectrum is the other side of it is a local detail and vehicle vehicle wrapping tent, performance wrap, and they're doing $1 million in revenue this year. And so you got the spectrum from just starting out and growing something from scratch. So you have to do that leap. He took the leap. Growing from scratch and getting to that point, and then you have someone who's been doing it for 20, 30 years and has seen tons of success and then provided so much value over that career of the bloody noses that he got and issues that he ran into and how he solved them. And so with that group, you have these people that bring in their experience, and then you also get a network afterwards and talk. We talk about obviously different topics for the meeting too, whatever it is for that meeting, whether it's finding financing or leveraging relationships in banking or accountants. But then at the end of it, we all talk for an hour, 2-3 hours, and it's creating something super special. I didn't know what it was going to be right away, but I knew it had a lot of potential to provide value. And so by doing that, we're providing a lot of value to other people, and then it doesn't hurt that you're putting it together, that I'm putting it together, because I learn a lot in the process, kind of like teaching a junior rep of if I'm going to talk about these 3 things this evening, I need to be an expert in all 3 things. So then I'm getting educated on things that affect my business too. Accounting, financing, different things that if I'm an expert in it now, it'll help me with school number 2, school number 3, and just trying to be a better version of myself while helping other people and give back to them. So it's been really fun. I'd love to have you guys come sometime. Maybe I can flip the script and you guys can be a guest speaker for me.
Good. Happy to.
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it.
Sounds good. Well, Justin, thank you for coming in. We appreciate dropping some knowledge and wisdom on us and sharing your story. A little bit different path, but I think the commonality, as we talked about before, is regardless of what industry that we're all in, we encounter a lot of the same issues. So thanks for sharing that. We appreciate it.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me here. And hopefully, if nothing else, it provided a little bit of value, or you could see the bloody noses that I've had, or call me and I'll tell you. We can talk off air of things that I learned, lessons learned throughout my time, both in sales and then now in business ownership, property ownership. There's a lot to learn, but anyone can figure it out. If I can figure it out, anyone can figure it out. It's just forcing yourself to learn. Get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, for sure.
I think there's going to be 3 things that a listener heard in this episode. 1, passion. 2, grit. And 3, willingness to take risk.
Yep.
It's a pretty awesome story.
Appreciate that. And it's nice to share. And I don't like to talk about myself very often, but so why not share it and put it out on the YouTube, right?
It's a safe place. It's a safe place here.
No one will know.
Yeah. Well, if you guys have any questions or comments for Justin, feel free to drop them in the comments section underneath here. Aside from that, we thank you all for joining us on this episode of the Industrious Podcast. So from wherever you guys are getting your podcast, you're tuning in on the Assessa YouTube channel or listening to it audio only. We appreciate you. And don't forget, guys, just like Justin did, be industrious.